Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
What? A shocked Willow was ready to look, but Troy placed his hand on the side of her head and stopped her. Don't look. Let him take the photos. Do you really want to be in the headlines tomorrow? Willow asked. Since you can't find Jasper, why don't you present yourself to him? Make him feel a sense of urgency. Even if he doesn't come looking for you, you have to let him know that you've been doing well without him. Willow found him sensible, so she nodded. All right, I'll play along. Troy picked up a flower from the vase and presented it to her with one knee on the floor, looking as though he was proposing to her. Willow was startled for a moment before taking the flower from him with a smile. The paparazzo never stopped taking photos of them since this was big news. He managed to capture the photos of Willow getting proposed to. After Willow and Troy were done putting on an act, they left the place. Meanwhile, the paparazzo contacted the biggest media company, wanting to sell those photos to the other party. When the person from the media company heard that, he immediately bought the photos from him and decided to make it the headline the next day. The next morning, Willow's phone started ringing while she was still asleep. When she realized it was Troy calling, she picked it up groggily. Hello? We're really in the headlines now. Well, how do I look in those photos? Willow asked. You look gorgeous. That's great, Willow replied. Anyway, I still have to get some shut-eye. Wait a minute. Send Jasper a message and tell him to attend our engagement party tonight. I'm looking for a suitable venue now. What? Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. If he comes to the party, it shows that he still cares about you. If he doesn't come, you can give up on him. But I'll make all the arrangements. Let's see if he cares about you. I'll book a banquet hall and send you the address. All right, I'll text him. Willow was fully awake at this point. He's right. If Jasper doesn't care about me, I'll stop wasting time on him. 10 minutes after the call ended, Troy sent her the address. Willow calmed herself down and thought that she should give it a shot. What if I don't have a special place in his heart? She took screenshots of her getting proposed to and sent them to Jasper via the contact number he had given her. Then, she wrote, We're friends, after all. It'll be my engagement party tonight. Why don't you come over? When she was done with that, she hoped that Jasper would reply to her. It was fine even if he only sent her one word. Nevertheless, after waiting for 30 minutes, she still didn't receive any reply. In the end, she felt helpless and thought that Troy's effort would go to waste. The man probably wouldn't come to the party. Jasper had been tailing his target for the entire night until 8 a.m. the next day. Not long after he checked into a hotel and lay down on the bed, he received a message. This phone was meant for important messages only, so there wouldn't be advertisements or unnecessary information. As such, he picked it up and took a look, only to see a message that was unrelated to work. What? Is she getting engaged already? Jasper zoomed into the photos and the news article, looking at the images of Troy proposing to Willow. Jasper's gaze darkened as he pressed his lips together. However, calmness was soon restored to his gaze. His urgent sense of sleepiness seemed to have vanished all of a sudden. He could clearly remember the hotel's address and the contact number written in the message. He snorted as if mocking himself, but there was a hint of frustration in his expression. Soon, it was evening. Willow and Troy headed to the hotel together. The man had even found people to act as guests, whereas Willow was told to change into a formal dress and put on some delicate makeup. By 7 p.m., the venue was turned into an engagement party. Willow sat down in the lounge and looked gratefully at Troy. Thanks for doing all this for me, but I think your efforts will likely go to waste. He won't be coming. Troy placated her by saying, "It's still very early. Don't worry too much." Willow took a look at her phone. A certain man hadn't replied to her since the morning, so why would he even come? Perhaps the man didn't care about her or had even forgotten about her. Only she was still putting on an act there, which was laughable. After Troy was gone, Willow sat down on the couch and recalled her memories with Jasper. From the moment she set her eyes on him for the first time to the few days they ran for their lives together, she was trying to find any evidence of Jasper taking a liking to her. However, as she recalled it, the man always sported a dispassionate expression, and there wasn't any love behind his gaze whenever he looked at her. I should end this farce sooner. Otherwise, I'll be a laughingstock. Meanwhile, a man got out of a black car and entered the hotel lobby along with other guests before stepping into the elevator. Although he was trying to hide among the guests, his outstanding appearance could hardly be concealed. Several women noticed his presence and felt bashful. When he reached the 10th floor where the engagement party was held, he stepped out of the elevator and sighed. Then, he lowered his gaze to conceal his emotions. When he looked up, his calm gaze was tinged with hesitation. The door to the venue was open, and he looked in the doorway's direction with an inscrutable gaze. Unbeknownst to him, his presence was already captured by the surveillance cameras around the venue. Troy immediately received a notification. When he looked at the surveillance footage on his phone, he curved his lips into a smile. The fish has taken the bait. He dashed toward the lounge. It just so happened that Willow was about to look for him. She said, "Let's end everything here, Troy. We'll go home after the guests finish their meals." "Why would we end the party when the star tonight has just arrived?" Troy said with a smile. "What are you talking about?" Willow blinked. Troy showed her his phone. "Look who's here. Isn't he the mysterious and handsome Mr. Wyatt?" Willow took the phone and saw Jasper in the surveillance footage. However, he was standing at the entrance and didn't seem to have any intention of coming in. She covered her mouth with surprise and dropped her handbag. "I'll go look for him now." "Don't scare him away, Willow," Troy said from behind. However, Willow had already bolted out of the room. She was dressed to the nines, and her peach evening gown made her look charming. The moment she left the venue, she realized the man was nowhere in sight, but she caught sight of the elevator door closing. As such, she charged forward and shouted, "Don't go." Then, she anxiously pressed the button. The next moment, the door opened right before her eyes. When the man inside registered her presence, he was shocked. Willow was panting from running the short distance. She glanced at the man in the elevator and beamed. "Since you're here, why didn't you go in?" The door was about to close again, so Willow tried to squeeze in. The man quickly pressed his hands against the door so that the woman wouldn't get hurt. Willow was so nervous that she lost her balance and crashed into the man's arms. His back hit the wall as they embraced each other. His inscrutable gaze seemed to be glowing as he looked at her. Willow tipped her head back. As her eyes reflected the lights from the ceiling, they looked like a pair of stars, making her appear alluring. His Adam's apple bobbed as he said hoarsely, "Congratulations on your engagement." "I'm not getting engaged tonight. Take me away." Willow's lips curved into a smile. An astounded Jasper stared fixedly at the woman in his arms, feeling as though he had misheard her. "What did you just say?" "Take me away. I'm not getting engaged tonight." Willow repeated her words. Her smiling eyes radiated an innocent yet mischievous glow. However, the man's gaze appeared dark. He sported a conflicted expression as he examined the woman. After observing her expression for a moment, he gently pushed her away while maintaining eye contact. "You'd better head back to the engagement party, Miss Presgrave." Willow held his arm and acted like a willful child. "Don't go. You're not a 3-year-old child, Miss Presgrave." You have to take marriage seriously." With that, Jasper pressed the button to the 10th floor when the elevator had just reached the first floor. When Willow saw that he was going to send her back to the engagement party, she glared at him. "Jasper." The moment the door opened, Jasper dragged her out of the elevator while Willow tried to pull him back. "No, I'm not going back to the party. If you don't want to marry that man, you can turn him down." The man insisted on lugging her toward the venue. "I'll only ask you one question, Jasper. Do you love me? If you do, I'll call off the engagement for you," Willow asked loudly. Jasper was startled for a moment before turning to look meditatively at her with a dark gaze. On the other hand, Willow tilted her head and glanced playfully at him. There was a hint of joy behind her gaze. Just then, an anxious-looking figure appeared at the entrance. He was none other than Troy. He had seen Willow entering the elevator, but when he took a look at the surveillance footage a moment later, he realized Jasper was bringing her back to the venue. "What's your relationship with him, Willow?" He immediately put on an act. Willow played along and held Jasper's arm before saying, "I'm sorry, Troy. He's the man I love. I'm not going to get engaged to you." Instantly, Troy glowered at Jasper like the man was his love rival. "Is he better than me in any way? Why do you love him but not me?" Willow stole a glance at Jasper with a smile as beautiful as a flower. "He saved my life and took care of me before." With a frown, Troy asked Jasper, "Do you love Willow?" Jasper glanced at Troy, his gaze as inscrutable as a lake covered in fog. In the meantime, Hell appeared doubtful. Willow had caused such a commotion, but none of the Presgraves appeared, nor did anyone leave the venue to take a look. Given the Presgraves' power, there were supposed to be bodyguards inspecting every guest at the entrance. However, none of them were at the venue. How much longer do you want to put on an act? Jasper was a special agent, after all. He had neglected some details because of what the woman did, but he soon realized what was going on. Willow flushed while Troy stiffened in an instant. He looked at the woman and decided to let her deal with the situation. "I'm going to look for my friends, Willow. See you later." Her face was all red at this point. Met with the man's sharp gaze, she muttered guiltily, "Is my acting that terrible? I don't think I've made any mistakes." She even felt that she could be the main actress in a drama, given her impeccable acting skills. Nonetheless, the man still saw through her. Jasper took a deep breath to calm himself down. Everything was just a show Willow had set up, but he still fell for it. Given his identity, it was an unforgivable mistake. He stared at the woman, who glanced at him with a pair of alluring eyes. Despite the obstinacy behind her gaze, she appeared somewhat coquettish. That made him feel helpless. "Let's end this farce here." A frustrated Jasper decided to turn around and leave. A shrewd glint flashed across Willow's eyes as she pretended to run after him. "Hey!" The next moment, she intentionally stepped on her dress and fell to the ground. Ouch! The man's back was against her. Regardless of how agile he was, he couldn't save a woman who deliberately fell to the floor. When he turned around, he saw Willow gasping in pain. "Tell your people to send you to the hospital," he said with a frown. "I want you to send me instead. Given my identity, I can't go to the hospital." "Don't go to the hospital, then. Send me to a hotel so that I can get some rest," Willow said. "You're in a hotel right now." "Oh, you're right. By the way, the presidential suite on the top floor is my family's exclusive room. Why don't you take me there?" The Presgraves owned so many businesses that Willow forgot about some of them. The man was rendered speechless. "Please, Jasper." Willow extended her hands and acted coquettishly. Even a hero couldn't resist a charming lady like her. Jasper bent over and draped her hand around his neck. Then, he extended his other arm below her knees and carried her before entering the elevator. When Willow pressed the button to the top floor, a slightly joyful smile formed on her face. However, she had forgotten about the man's identity. He could capture information through the reflection of anything. There was a mirror affixed to the door, so he could see the smile on her face. Moreover, he had already realized that it was just her pretense, but he didn't expose her. After entering the Presgraves' exclusive room, they saw the luxurious interior with ceiling-to-floor windows. When they looked out, they could see a magnificent river. Willow sat down on the couch and picked up the remote control to switch on some appliances. "Tell your family members to take care of you. I'll be taking my leave. Don't go. If you have time, why don't you stay here for a while?" Willow suggested. The towering man stopped in his tracks but didn't turn around. "I don't have time for your little games." "All right, let me ask you. Why are you here today?" Willow asked with her brow raised. Before the man could reply, she continued, "Don't tell me you happened to pass by this place or had a mission to carry out here." With a frown, Jasper turned around and stared at her. "Weren't you the one who invited me to your engagement party?" Willow was startled for a moment before asking, "Are you saying you're only here as a guest?" The man didn't respond to her. She bit her lip and continued, "Do you want to see me marry someone else?" Jasper let out a sigh. "Miss Presgrave, if you're looking for a potential partner, you've found the wrong person." Willow suddenly realized that even though she had done so much to find out if the man loved her, she only made him frustrated. She wrapped her arms around her knees and buried her face between her thighs, looking as though she was an injured kitten. Then, she said gently, "You can go now. I won't bother you again." Her figure was curled up in the spacious living room, making her look piteous. When the man turned around and looked at the woman on the couch, he didn't realize that a hint of softness flashed across his dispassionate gaze. "Get your family members to come over." "No," Willow said obstinately. Just then, the man received a notification on his watch. A teammate was calling for him. "I really have to leave now." With that, Jasper turned around and left. Suddenly, Willow called out to him, "Wait a minute." Jasper stopped in his tracks in front of the door and whirled around to ask, "What else?" Willow got up from the couch and lifted the hem of her dress before rushing toward him. Then, she took a look at him and wrapped her arms around his waist. With her face against his chest, she said, "Let me hug you for a while." The man was astounded. However, Willow hugged him tightly with her face against his firm chest. She closed her eyes and enjoyed the embrace for a moment before reluctantly stepping away. "You can leave now. I'll stay here tonight. If I get scared of being alone, I'll send you a message. You must reply to me, got it?" Jasper was rendered speechless. He had repeatedly told Willow not to send him messages, but the woman didn't seem to keep that in mind. "Only tonight." Upon finishing his words, he opened the door and stepped out of the room. Inside the room, Willow put on a satisfied smile. It seemed that the man had finally made a compromise. "What are you doing, Jasper?" "They're about to complete the transaction," Amy reminded him through the intercom. Jasper immediately came to his senses and focused on the screen. He could hear the targets talking to each other. As they shook hands, their subordinates traded the goods. The subordinates of both parties carefully carried their black leather cases. The buyer and the seller respectively keyed in their passwords. One party got the payment in full, while the other party obtained the activation code. The goods were already in the buyer's hands for inspection. They needed the activation code to use the weapons. The activation code is right inside the black leather case, Jasper. We have to snatch it. I'll do it. Come over with the car in 10 minutes. Sure. Be careful. Amy had confidence in him. Jasper put all the equipment inside his backpack and walked toward the abandoned factory amid the rain. Despite being on his own, he was intimidating and dispassionate. He took off his black coat and revealed his black shirt and pants, which made him look dapper. When the two men in black at the entrance noticed him, they took out their guns and opened fire. Jasper lowered his gaze and zigzagged forward like an eagle in the darkness, easily dodging their bullets. As he hurled his coat at one of them, he dashed toward the other one. The man thought that he had accurately targeted Jasper, but the next moment, he realized that he shot his companion. That was because he felt someone clenching his arm and pointing the gun at his companion. Several men in black bolted out of the factory. Before they figured out what was going on, they were shot by the bullets. The people from both parties exchanged glances and left with their respective goods. With the help of their subordinates, they charged toward their cars. However, when the buyer with the black leather case left the factory, he felt that he had been targeted by a pair of beast-like eyes. While holding the leather case, he turned around and saw a man in black clothes, who had just killed his subordinates, staring at him. His gaze was filled with coldness and murderous intent. "Get into the car right now," the buyer anxiously urged his subordinates. However, just when he was ready to enter his car, the vehicle detonated with a boom. Upon impact, he fell to the ground and started seeing stars. Despite that, he still held the leather case tightly and yelled, "Protect me! Protect me!" Several men in black rushed over to save him, but they were mercilessly killed by the bullets and collapsed to the ground. By now, Bucky and his subordinates had left the place. When the last subordinate was destroyed, the buyer widened his eyes in horror and looked at the man who killed all his subordinates on his own. He knew it was difficult to deal with the man. "Who are you?" he asked apprehensively. The man stepped on the muddy ground and remained silent. He got hold of the case's handle, but the buyer refused to let it go. "It's mine! It's mine!" Amid the lightning, Jasper stared fixedly at him as if he was a demon from hell. Although he didn't utter a word, the buyer trembled and released the case because he wanted to survive. Jasper straightened up with the leather case while Amy pulled up the car in front of him. He got into the car and opened the case. Then, he connected his computer to the laptop inside the case. As his fingers flew over the keyboard, he said grimly, "Let's go back." Amy swept a glance over the corpses on the floor before giving the man in the back seat a look of approval through the rearview mirror. She had seen from the footage how the man easily destroyed all of them. She believed that none of the people in the organization could pull off the feat as smoothly as he did. Although he was on his own, he was imposing. Although Jasper's hair had been dampened by the rain, it made him look even more charming. Amy's emotions were undulated in her heart. Every time she went on a mission with him, she found herself falling harder for him. No woman could resist his charm. She realized it had come to a point where she could no longer stop loving him. Jasper focused on working on the computer as if not wanting to waste even a second. Most of his time was spent carrying out the most dangerous missions in the world. He was protecting the safety and interests of this country. Around 30 minutes later, he sent a decoded number to the headquarters, and he received a reply from the other party 10 minutes later. "It works." The mission they were tasked with was a success. Amy stopped the car in the underground parking lot of the hotel and got out of the vehicle. Jasper passed her the black leather case and said, "Take it. I have to go somewhere else." She took a look at her wristwatch and asked, "Where are you going at this hour?" Without responding to her, Jasper got into the driver's seat. A heartbroken Amy asked, "Are you going to look for Miss Presgrave?" Instead of replying, he hurriedly stepped on the gas pedal as if he was going to deal with something that was even more important than his missions. The bolts of lightning continued to strike from the sky as the man's black car charged toward a particular hotel. Willow lay down on the couch and hugged the bolster, ready to endure the torturous night on her own. When her parents gave her a call, she told them that she was having fun with her friends. Even though they were worried, they wouldn't interfere in her private life. She repeatedly had the urge to call or text a certain someone, but she stopped herself from doing that. Compared to her fear, she had a stronger wish for him to be safe. During the red light, Jasper fished out his phone and took a look, but there were no messages or missed calls from the woman. Didn't she say she would call me when she was afraid? Is there another man by her side? Is that why she's not terrified? He let out a sigh. If there was someone else by her side, he didn't have to rush over. Nevertheless, he had an intense urge to go to the woman. While he was struggling internally, the traffic light turned green. He then stepped on the gas pedal. When he arrived at the underground parking lot of the hotel, he entered the elevator and headed straight to the top floor. Following a clap of thunder, Willow heard the doorbell ringing. She took a look at the time and realized it was 2:30 a.m. What the heck? Who's looking for me at this hour? She tensed up in an instant. Who is it? Who's outside the door now? Could it be Troy? No way. If he wanted to look for me, he would have called me in advance. Are my parents outside? That's impossible too. I didn't tell them where I was. Who is it? Is a criminal trying to harm me? Her phone started ringing just then. She took a look at the caller ID and appeared surprised because Jasper was calling her out of the blue. She connected the call and said, "Hello?" "Open the door," the man said in his masculine voice. A surprised Willow looked at the door. "Are you outside?" Yes, she tossed the phone away and bolted toward the door, looking as happy as a kid. Without hesitation, she opened the door. When she saw the man outside, her eyes widened with disbelief. "Why are you all wet?" "I just came back from a mission." Upon finishing his words, the man stepped into the room. When he realized there was no one else in the living room, a hint of joy flashed across his eyes. Not only was the man soaked to the skin, but some strands of grass had also been intertwined with his hair. It seemed that the mission required him to be in the wilderness. He must be exhausted. "You're all wet. Why don't you take a shower?" Willow said while feeling sorry for him. "Why didn't you ask someone to keep you company?" Jasper asked. Willow shook her head. "It's fine. I'm not afraid." Just moments ago, she was lying on the couch and hugging the bolster while trembling in fear. However, she didn't want to appear frail in front of the man. She wanted to project a strong image, but when the man caught sight of the blanket and bolster on the couch, he formed some speculation. "May I take a shower here?" he asked, needing to freshen up as soon as possible. Willow replied, "Sure. Let's go. Take a shower in my room. I'll get you my brother's clothes." Jasper didn't turn her down. Since he had completed his mission, it was time for him to wind down. He arrived at a girlish room painted in pink and blue. It looked like a room that was fit for a princess. "It's my room, but please don't assume I'm childish because of it. My parents prepared it for me when I was 10 years old," explained an embarrassed Willow. Jasper glanced at the young woman, who looked sweet and elegant. It was imaginable that her parents must have been treating her like she was a princess. He then entered the bathroom and became startled because it was also in the color pink. Willow stuck her head into the bathroom and flashed a smile at him. "Don't judge." "I won't," Jasper replied. "The towels are over there. I'll get you some clean clothes right now. My brother has many clothes here that he has never put on before." With that, she bolted to Jared's room and looked for suitable clothes for the man. When she got the clothes and returned to the room, she realized the man was already taking a shower. She put down the clothes on the couch, but just as she was ready to step out of the room, she thought, "Why should I leave? Isn't it wonderful to enjoy a free show? Other men might charge me a fee to show their bodies. At the thought of this, she sat down on the couch and waited for him. As she listened to the sounds of the shower, she couldn't help having some images in her mind. Soon, she felt herself blushing, and she even gulped involuntarily. Feeling bashful, she covered her face and thought, "What's wrong with me?" She didn't expect she would be drooling over a man. Although she despised herself for her actions, she found herself enjoying it and not wanting to pull out of it. Around 20 minutes later, the man finally opened the door. Willow gulped and bashfully turned her head to look. As expected, the man was only clad in a bath towel while he dried his hair with another towel. He wasn't embarrassed to show the woman his well-defined figure. The man appeared to be at ease. His eyebrows were thick, and his gaze was dark. Besides that, he had a high-bridged nose and a pair of thin lips. He looked as perfect as the men drawn by Al Software. Willow widened her eyes slightly and stared fixedly at him. Faced with the woman's fervent gaze, a helpless Jasper said, "Please leave the room for a moment." Suddenly, Willow turned around and said, "I won't look. You can put on your clothes now." The man picked up the clothes from the couch and entered the bathroom again. When he closed the door, he could hear the woman muttering, "He's so ungenerous." Apparently, she was displeased that the man wasn't willing to show her his figure. Soon, the man stepped out of the bathroom. He was clad in a fitting shirt and a pair of casual black pants. The shirt perfectly outlined his firm chest, making him look aggressive yet attractive. The pants also made his legs appear longer. His dark hair was a bit of a mess, which gave off a conflicted vibe that was somewhere between abstinence and indulgence. His male hormones seemed to be brimming out of his body. Willow felt that if the man quit being a special agent, he could be a model or the lead actor. There was no doubt he would become an A-list celebrity. Willow praised the man by saying, "Wow! My brother's clothes look perfect on you." Just then, Jasper's phone rang. After checking the caller ID, he answered it. "Hello? Jasper, where are you?" It was Amy on the other end. "What's the matter?" "I want to know where you are," she requested again. "I don't need to report my whereabouts outside of work, Amy," Jasper said solemnly. "You're with her, aren't you?" Amy questioned, making Jasper frown. Meanwhile, Amy continued, "Jasper, if you really like her, you should stay away from her and not move closer." "Amy, don't let her become your weakness," Amy warned and hung up the phone. As Jasper held his phone, Willow, behind him, stared at him. "Are you leaving?" she asked worriedly at the sight of his sudden grimness. At that, Jasper turned around to look at Willow, and his countenance indeed expressed his inclination to leave. Panicked, she rushed to him and grabbed his sleeve, commanding, "You're better not." Jasper's brows relaxed a bit, and he looked at Willow, his voice hoarse. "All right, I won't leave tonight." Only then did Willow smile. It was already 3 a.m., and dawn would arrive if they stayed up a little longer. Willow was wide awake at this point, and the thunder and lightning were gone, replaced by pouring rain outside the window. There was something magical about rainy nights. It would make people drop their guard and follow their hearts and instincts. Willow went to grab a bottle of red wine and poured 2 glasses. She looked up at the man standing by the floor-to-ceiling window. There was something superior and dominating about him, and his silhouette was truly captivating. Willow approached him. Wearing flat shoes, she only reached his jawline. For a moment, the figures by the floor-to-ceiling window, the man was strong and sturdy, resembling a towering mountain, unyielding, while the girl was slender and delicate, in need of protection. Willow leaned her head against the man's shoulder, pretending to be unsteady arms, and his gaze fell upon her. Willow was like a mischievous child who had yet to grow up in front of Jasper, using all her tricks and strategies on him. Never had it occurred to her either that a man would bring out this side of her in her lifetime. After all, she had always projected an independent and competent image before meeting Jasper, traveling alone around the world to carry out cultural heritage conservation work. However, after meeting Jasper, she turned into a helpless and fragile damsel. Meanwhile, Bucky was lashing out in the hotel. He hadn't expected to be targeted by the special ops, away a batch of his live authorization codes. Now, his batch of goods was also being targeted. Damn, Bucky was the type who sought revenge. He was determined to get back at those who toppled him, otherwise, he would be ridiculed by his fellow evildoers. Find out who those two were. I want them dead. Bucky ordered his subordinates. Bucky's subordinates weren't simpletons either. They possessed more advanced technology and information systems. Soon, they captured footage on their screens. The first person captured was a woman driving a car. Although the image was not clear, her features were memorable at first glance. However, the man in the back seat of the SUV was just a blurry figure. These people immediately started tracking the car's movements and finally captured a photo of the man at the exit of an underground parking lot in a hotel. The man in the photo had a memorable face, and his expression seemed contemplative, giving a sense of deep mystery. We found them, sir. It's these two. We also found a record of their stay in this hotel. We have been under their surveillance for a while. Bucky also recognized the two of them at a glance. He sneered, "It's them. I underestimated the abilities of these agents. We'll stay here for a few days. I'm giving you 3 days to kill those two." Bucky turned to his subordinates grimly. "Yes, sir. We'll do our best to find and eliminate them." At that, Bucky turned and fixed his gaze out the window. If the two weren't taken care of, his future tasks would turn difficult, and he would struggle even more in this industry. Furthermore, he intended to wash away last night's shame with their blood. Bucky's subordinates immediately sprang into action. They had just located Amy's whereabouts, so they surrounded the hotel she was residing in. The young woman spent the night awake as well. She was dog-tired, yet she simply couldn't fall asleep. It had been a long time since her emotions had taken over her thoughts, but that night, she was finding it particularly difficult to sleep. Closing her eyes only brought forth the images of Jasper and Willow. She hadn't witnessed Jasper's gentle side, but she could imagine how captivating and enchanting it would be. With his personality, once he fell in love with a woman, he would protect her with his life, shower her with affection, and also spoil her rotten. Amy wished she could be the one Jasper loved with such devotion. But now, that dream was no more, for Jasper had found the girl. How lucky of Miss Presgrave. Amy let out a sigh and was about to get up and pour herself a glass of water when suddenly, a silhouette flashed by outside the window. She was in special cops after all, so she immediately sensed the danger and rushed back into her room. She picked up a suitcase she had prepared and made her way to Jasper's room, taking his laptop with her. She approached the peephole and took a quick look. Although she saw no one through the peephole, she knew the door was already surrounded. However, she had no choice but to fight her way out. With that, she put on her earpiece and dialed Jasper's phone number. In the hotel, Jasper and Willow were resting on the couch. Willow was starting to feel drowsy, and her little head naturally leaned on the man's shoulder as she closed her eyes. Just then, Jasper's phone vibrated, and he checked the caller ID before answering. "Jasper." Amy's voice came at once. "Bucky's men have found me. Let's meet up at the safe house." The young woman hung up after relaying her message, and Jasper put his phone down, looked at the girl sleeping on his shoulder, and whispered, "Willow, wake up." "What is it?" Willow opened her slightly groggy eyes and looked at him. "I'm sending you home." Jasper's tone sounded grave. "Has something happened?" A sharp-witted lady, Willow quickly realized something was up. She sat up straight and looked at him. "Are you being chased? Where are your bodyguards?" Jasper asked instead. "They're downstairs. Call them and have them take you home immediately." Jasper clenched his jaw, clearly apprehensive. He wouldn't even have batted an eyelid if he was faced with such a situation alone. However, with Willow by his side, he plunged into anxiety. "All right." Willow nodded, sensing his anxiety. "I'll call them now." After calling her bodyguards, Willow held Jasper's hand tightly. "Let my people help you. Only need 2 bodyguards to take me home. Your safety is the top priority." Jasper locked his gaze on her. "All right, promise me you'll text me before 7 o'clock a.m., telling me you're okay," Willow demanded. "Okay," Jasper agreed to comfort her. However, Willow bit her lip with some reluctance still and wrapped her arms around his waist, leaning into his chest as she lamented, "Why is our rendezvous always so rushed? I really wish we could spend a little more time together." Jasper didn't push her away. He simply lowered his head and gazed at the face pressed against his chest, his eyes unknowingly softening.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.